A few years ago, a group of railroad modelers built a display at the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon. In fact, they're still adding to it. A bridge here, a tree there. They say the work, or should I say play, of a train enthusiast is never complete. Susan Klein prepared this story in the club.
To us, that's music. Yeah. It really is.
For Jim Banner, the rumbling sound of a train is like a well-crafted song. And it doesn't seem to matter how many times he's heard the old whistle blow, it still makes him stop for a second just to savor it and watch the train pass by. This is a model railroad that Jim Banner and some of his friends built a few years ago at the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon.
It starts off with one train going from left to right from Regina through the Capel Valley, across bridges, across the river there, through the largest city that we model, which is Saskatoon, because the railroad is in Saskatoon. We show in Saskatoon a number of the historic buildings that existed in 1910 that we have built from photographs. Past Saskatoon, we go through Duck Lake, where we have another small village, complete with the lake itself, with figures of ducks, deer, and so forth around the water. And then finally we disappear at the right side into the trees, getting into Prince Albert.
The model railroad here is really a work in progress. The 5 men who put it together are still adding to it. They're at the museum just about every Saturday morning, and right now they're working on a new installation of toy trains. On Sundays, they've been giving public talks on the building of model railroads. Of course, they all have trains and railways in the basements and spare rooms of their houses. Wolfgang Kurtz says that some people might think they're crazy, but he says they're just 5 old guys who know how to have fun.
Officially, we call ourselves the Saskatoon Railway Modelers, but since 4 of us have retired now, and only one is still working for a paycheck, and that one is United Church Ministers, unofficially we call ourselves the 4 grouchy geezers and a godly guide.
Tom Powell is their godly guide, and he says that the others have the luxury of not having to work for a living. His job as a minister at the Royal University Hospital is quite stressful, and playing with trains relieves some of that tension. It also brings back some good memories.
My dad was fascinated by trains and always was, and I got my first electric train set when I was about 7, I guess. I've never looked back. I've always been fascinated with trains. I'm one of these crazy guys that if I see a train coming down the track, a couple of miles, I'll stop at the railroad crossing and wait for it to come so that I can sit and watch it go by and count the cars and listen to their noise. And
how old are you?
How old am I? Well, I'm firmly established in the 5th decade. I guess to me it's the smell and the size and the sound and all of that. But my modeling now is in modern period, and so I guess I love the throb of a diesel locomotive. I have soundtracks that I just put on that are just like my tape in the car. I'll put it on, and it's just the throbbing noise of diesel locomotives, so for an hour or 2. I don't do that when my wife is with me, but... so.
Basically, you have to use your own judgment. After all, not everyone likes the sound of a train engine laboring through the mountains. And not everyone will understand your hobby. Jim Banner.
When I moved to Saskatoon 10 years ago, my real estate agent thought I was nuts because I was looking for a specific size basement that my model railroad would fit in. And anything else in the house was optional, but the basement was a must. My father, back in the days before movies and before TV, used to take the family down to watch the train come in. For me, the great, huge, panting steam engines coming in, I can still remember it. And that even to an adult, a full-size steam engine is a very large piece of equipment. To a child, a 3 or 4-year-old child, they are absolutely incredible in size. And some of my earliest memories or having my mother tie all the little cars and trucks together with pieces of string so I could have them as trains. And that led to them buying me first a wind-up train, and then I believe I was 7, an electric train, and I've been building model railroads ever since.
The members of the Saskatoon Railroad Modelers have great stories to tell about how their love for trains evolved. Wolfgang Kurtz traces his fascination with trains right back to his birthplace.
I'm not so sure, but I think the first sound I heard when I came to this earth was the sound of a steam engine, because I was born right beside the railway tracks. I was born in Austria, and they had a lot of special mountain engines which always fascinated me as a kid. The whole thing started when my daughters gave me a train set for Christmas, and I always complained that my parents weren't wealthy enough to buy me a model railway when I was a kid, and that I was deprived as a child. And my daughters had enough of that, so they gave me a railway kit, and they should have never done that, because this started the whole affair with building model railways and also collecting engines.
Another member of the Saskatoon Railroad Modelers is Don Diamond. He grew up in Biggar, a railway divisional point west of Saskatoon. His grandfather, his father, his brother, and most of his uncles worked on the railway. Don worked for the railway part-time in high school. He says he understands why trains appeal to so many men.
I think it's just a sound of power, which I think appeals to probably a lot of males. A sound of, for example, aircraft engines, sound of a powerful locomotive relate to the automobile. Sports car, big muscle car. I think it's really just literally a sound of horsepower, a sound of heavy machinery, which has a unique effect on males, perhaps.
As the Saskatoon Railroad Modelers work on one of their displays at the Western Development Museum, they talk about some of the people they've had a chance to meet. They've had a lot of inquiries about their work with trains. Jim Banner and Tom Powell both agree. They say it's time to pass on their knowledge.
I have twin 2.5-year-old granddaughters out in Vancouver who always call me Grandpa Choo Choo. They know they like my trains, and I had the pleasure of being with them in Vancouver at Christmas, and we spent a lot of time watching things like Thomas the Tank on video and playing with the toy train, which is around the Christmas tree. They love the trains too.
I think in terms of passing on the hobby, I guess I just think, like, I don't have grandchildren yet, but I think of the children who come to the museum, and the delight that's in their eyes, just awe-inspiring, just the delight that they have in their eyes when they watch the trains go. And some kids, you'll watch them and their eyes literally bug right out of their head, you know. And some kids, it's really funny to watch, sort of after half an hour, their mothers or dads will try to get them to move along, and, you know, we got to go somewhere else in the museum, and the kids won't go, and, you know, they're just screaming, we want to stay here, we want to. So I think in terms of passing on the hobby or the interest, all you got to do is look at the kids around here that have such a great time with the layout. I think people are really delighted when they see us at play, and I think that maybe it allows adults, gives them permission to feel they can play too.
For the afternoon edition, I'm Susan Klein at the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon.
Thank you, Susan. Hope your cold clears up soon. The Saskatoon Railroad Modelers are holding talks at 2 p.m. every Sunday until March 31st. You can learn everything from wiring the model railroad to designing a landscape. You can contact the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon for more details. The number is 931-1910, 931